Take your chords over to the dark side with negative harmony. Negative harmony was first described by Ernst Levy in his book, A Theory of Harmony, though he himself never used this term. It was popularized by Jacob Collier a few years ago. Ernst's theory of polarity and his use of the theoretical undertone series was used to generate the ideas for negative harmony. Essentially, negative harmony is a way to generate chords by use of inversion. Chords are inverted across an axis, and this spits out the negative equivalent of these chords. Ernst theorized that all chords have an opposite in both emotion and function. Major chords are opposite minor chords, dominant chords are opposite half-diminished chords, and perfect chord motion is opposite plagal chord motion. So when chords are flipped over this axis, they become their opposite in emotion and function. And the way that they approach back to the key center also changes. If a chord's root is clockwise of the axis, the motion needed to get back to the key center is perfect, essentially moving in a series of fifths. If the chord's root is counterclockwise of the axis, the motion needed to get back to the chord center is plagal, and this will flip as well. For example, the roots of a 2-5-1 in the key of C are D, G, and C. But the roots of the negative equivalents of these chords would be B flat, F, and C. All this to say that negative harmony will tend to give us a series of plagal cadences which emphasizes the chord motion from the opposite side of the circle of fifths than we are used to hearing. So how do we find the negative equivalent of chords? The circle of fifths is the best tool to find the negative equivalents. Take your circle and locate the tonic and dominant of the key you are in, and then draw an axis directly between them and across to the other side of the circle. In the key of C, that would be here, and in the key of A, it would be here. Then circle all of the notes of the chord you are trying to find the negative equivalent of and flip them over this axis. So for G7, G, B, D, F, the G becomes C, the B becomes A flat, the D becomes F, and the F becomes D. A 2 chord, D minor, would look like this. And this is what a full 2-5-1 and its negative equivalent would sound like. But why does this work? The main reason that this works so well is that the tension between the chords that are flipped over the axis is preserved. So for example, let's take a look at that G7 chord once again. When G7 is moving back to the tonic, there is tension in that chord that wants to be released. The B in G7 wants to resolve up to the tonic C, and the F in G7 wants to resolve down to the E. If we look at the negative equivalent of that chord, F minor add 6, or D half diminished, depending on how you look at it, the A flat in this chord wants to resolve downwards to the G, just like the B wanted to resolve upwards to the C in G7. And the D wants to resolve upwards to the E flat, just like the F wanted to resolve downwards to the E. So the voice leading was flipped, resolution upwards from B to C to resolution downwards from A flat to G. But the tension remains the same for both chords. So we get a new sound with a different chord that can do the same thing as the old chord. So let's try this out on a simple melody. Here we have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star harmonized all with chords within the key of G major. And now let's replace some of those harmonies with their negative equivalents. These chords were all found by flipping them over the tonic-dominant axis. And these chords were left alone because their negative equivalents would have clashed with the melody. And that's pretty much the gist of negative harmony. But there's a lot of debate on the validity of this theory, and it can be very divisive amongst musicians. In preparation for this video, I did some exploring on Reddit, and there are definitely some outspoken people there who thinks that this is just internet BS. But why? Well, mostly because the idea of negative harmony can also be explained in other ways. The first of which being mode mixture. The negative equivalent of most of these chords can already be found by the use of mode mixture. For example, the negative equivalent of the 5-7, which is F minor add 6 or D half diminished, can simply be explained by borrowing the 2-7 chord from the minor mode. In C minor, the 2 chord would be 2 half diminished 7. And the other issue is the use of inversion. Inversion has been used for hundreds of years. Taking pitches and rotating it over an axis or over another pitch has been used from Bach to Berg and is fundamental to many composition ideas. It is nothing new. The people that speak out against negative harmony, I think, do it because they feel that people like Jacob Collier are taking credit for something that he did not come up with. He just took an old idea, slapped a cool name on it, and got tons of attention for it. I guess I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, I think Jacob and Ernst Levy found a new way to repackage something old and made it more widely known, and I have a hard time seeing how that's a bad thing. So no, it's not an original groundbreaking idea, but it is an interesting way to think about inversion, and if it means more people learn about it, then I think it's a good thing. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and check out my Patreon.